Not all franchises are created equal, especially in the eyes of a lender. Today, Beau explains how the strength of your chosen franchise directly affects your SBA approval odds, your loan terms, and even your equity injection. Hey, Beau, how's it going?
Doing great. Thanks, Bill.
So, what do lenders look at when they evaluate a franchise brand?
So if it's a new brand and you have less than 10 locations, some banks are not going to fund it just because it's an emerging franchise and there's not enough data. One of the major banks, that's their criteria now, that needs 10 locations or more. Longevity of the brand does make a big difference. If it's an emerging brand, we get them done all the time, but you got to put it to the right lender, and they're going to get scrutinized more. So, for example, if a brand is really strong, if a franchise is really strong, they have a lot of locations, most of the loans have performed because we have data of all the historicals of the SBA loans. So if they're performing and it's a well-established brand, a bank like Huntington Bank, for example, normally does 80% of the total project cost. But if it's a top-tier franchise and it's a top-tier borrower, meaning great credit, all the fundability things, they will fund up to 90% on some, very limited amount. Now, there's other banks out there that will do 90% and they don't scrutinize as much. There's pros and cons to working with each of these lenders. And that's what we do, is we help navigate and find the right lender. And oftentimes, for more challenging deals, we go to lenders that might not be one of the top 5 largest franchise lenders, but they will do common sense underwriting. So that's what we help do. So once we have an initial conversation, Jim sets up an appointment with our team. Jim's looking at 2 or 3 different franchises, saying, "Hey, I'm interested in these franchises," and then we explain which ones might be easier to fund and why, so they get a really good understanding. Because if they're very low liquidity, maybe they say, "Well, I like both of them a lot, but if this one's going to be easier to fund, and I don't have to put as much money into the deal, and I can keep more in reserves, I'd much rather do that." So I think we add a big component to helping people understand the capabilities of why it makes sense. It's not so much them. It's really like, look, you want to put down 10 or 20% and you have low post-close liquidity, and the franchise is an emerging franchise, it's going to be a lot tougher to get the deal done. So just understanding that, and we have lenders that do small loans that are really good, doing up to loan amounts of 150, 200,000. And so like if we can go with them, we know it's going to be a quicker, streamlined approach. We know their guidelines. The big thing though, Bill, is right now, we always talk about the SBSS credit score, and one of our go-to banks used to be at that the borrower had to score 165. Well, now they have to score 180. So ultimately, it's more challenging because of the climate we're in as far as the economy. I do see probably a slowdown as far as being able to get deals approved. The lenders are scrutinizing not just franchises, but more. So we got to come prepared, because we're still going to close a lot of loans and help you. But being prepared now is more important than ever.
How can a franchisor's SBA registry status or performance history influence rates and approval?
Yeah, just so going back, if they don't have a lot of open locations, it's a little bit tougher to do. If they have a lower FranData score, one of our bank partners, they rely on the FranData score. How that FranData basically rates a franchise on basically their fundability. Are they a strong franchise? Are they, and that score, some banks rely heavily on that. So ultimately, that being said, there's a lot of different variables, and the other variable is that there's not a lot of good lenders that focus on franchise financing, because remember, this is the projection-based loan, and oftentimes, most of the time, if the loan amounts under 350, they're not taking any additional collateral, so they're really high-risk loans if you really think about it. Even if it's so, the saving grace is if you have a well-performing franchise for a long amount of time, they can look at that data and say, "Hey, we're comfortable because this franchise has 300 locations and they have a very low default rate, versus I have 2 locations and it's just corporate locations and it's all smoke and mirrors." So we're seeing a big constriction on that right now. I imagine that's going to continue. So you have to go in understanding those dynamics. And of course, for example, I had a borrower the other day. She's not working, and it's actually hard to get, even though you would think I'm going to go full time into this business. banks don't care. They're like, do you have income to pay your bills right now? Even if you have a couple $100,000 in the bank, they're still scrutinized more so. So I think ultimately, just what I see right now is a tightening, and just be prepared. We're still going to get loans done. It's just that the lower credit score borrowers and the ones with low liquidity are going to be a lot more challenging now more than ever.
I think you've kind of already touched on this one, but what happens when a candidate picks a newer or emerging brand versus a more established brand?
It's just going to be way harder. Everybody, I have a CPA that refers me business, and the message always is strive for 90% financing, so, banks don't want to see that. There's a difference, right? Like if you have liquidity in your bank or in liquid assets like stocks and things that you can go sell, that's liquidity, not retirement. So many people don't have that, and they're borrowing money from a retirement account or borrowing from a HELOC. Now that's eligible, but banks still don't like that as much as the money's sitting there. They're not borrowing against it; they have it.
Yeah.
We can get pretty much any type of loan done if it makes sense. And so, like if you're a strong borrower, you have decent transferable experience, even if it's they have no locations, but they're on the SBA directory, we can get that deal done. But the more and more challenges, like, oh, I'm not working right now. I have this much in liquid assets. I want 90% financing. That starts getting harder and harder. But if you're when I had a customer that isn't working, but she had $400,000 liquid. So when you have $400,000 liquid, you can tell a different story. Good credit, $400,000 liquid, the banks will play, right? But if you have $50,000 liquid and you're not working and you have a bunch of bills that you have to cover every month, your global cash flow doesn't look good. So all those things play in, but we help you get in front of what an underwriter is going to look at, so we can kind of alleviate as many pain points. So an underwriter says, okay, this makes sense. And a lot of that is positioning the loan file and making sure everything makes sense.
Yeah, so last question. Can strong personal experience offset, even if just a little bit, a weaker franchise brand?
Absolutely. So can money. So can liquidity. So can great credit. I call those compensating factors. We always want to know the compensating factors. If there's some sort of hair in the deal, what are the compensating factors? And then how do we get a bank to say yes?
Got it. So your franchise selection isn't just a business decision. It's a financing decision too. Beau helps clients match with brands that open lending doors instead of closing them. If you want to get into a business, expand your business, or find the right franchise, visit bookwithbeau.com. Thanks, Beau.
Thank you. If you're a solopreneur or small business owner, listen closely. Business growth isn't about working harder. It's about building smarter systems. It's about automation. And that's exactly what GoHighLevel helps you do. Build your funnel, automate your follow-up, manage your team, all in one place. Click the link below, activate your trial, and see how much more efficient, automated, and profitable your business can be in just 30 days. Hey guys, Beau Eckstein here. If you enjoyed what you saw, please subscribe to this channel. We talk all things financing. I've been in the lending industry for over 20 years, and I'm happy to answer your questions and provide great content.